So notochord which is present at the dorsal side of the organism. So these notochord, they are present only in the tail of the larva. Urochordata and cephalochordata are referred to as protochordates, and sometimes instead of giving the option as urochordata, they can give it as tunicata. Don't get confused, because urochordata is also called as tunicata. Presence of notochord only in larval tail? No, because that is a characteristic feature of urochordata. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to this session on class 11th Biology for CBSE. I am Dr. Divya, Biology faculty, Vidhyaashram School of Excellence, Mysuru. So in this session, let us learn about phylum Chordata under chapter 4 of Animal Kingdom, and let's look into some of the MCQs that can be framed under this particular topic in exam point of view. So talking about phylum Chordata. So far in the previous sessions, we learnt about phylum non-chordata, right? So all the organisms, that be it phylum Porifera, the cnidarians, coelenterate, arthropods, cephalochordates, coelenterate, cnidarians, arthropods, all that we studied under phylum non-chordates, including the hemichordata, right? So from this session onwards, let's learn about phylum chordates. So phylum chordates, those organisms that have a notochord are placed under chordata. So in this session, let us learn about phylum chordata. So those are the organisms which have a notochord. So what are the characteristics? The main characteristic feature of phylum chordata is the presence of notochord, and they have a dorsal hollow nerve cord, and apart from that they have paired pharyngeal gill slit, that is in the pharynx. So in the sides of the pharynx they have the gill slits on either sides, which aids in respiration. So it is two gill slits, so therefore they have a paired pharyngeal gill slit. And talking about this body symmetry, all the organisms under chordata are bilaterally symmetrical, wherein I draw a line exactly at the center. One half of it will be the mirror image of the other half. And talking about the cell arrangement, they are triploblastic in nature, wherein the cells are arranged in three embryonic layers, that is an outer ectoderm, inner endoderm, and between the ectoderm and the endoderm, in between, in the middle, there is one more layer called as the mesoderm. And they are coelomates, meaning they have a body cavity and they have organ system level of organization, wherein a group of organs come together to perform a particular function. Say for example, they have a digestive system wherein the stomach, the esophagus, the stomach, the intestine, all that come together to perform a particular function of digesting the food. Or an excretory system wherein the kidneys perform a particular function of eliminating waste from the body. So that is how the different organs participate or group together to perform a particular function. And next they have a post-anal tail. All the chordates have a post-anal tail. So we human beings also come under the chordates, but it is the tail in human beings are not there, but we have a tailbone in our body exactly at the base of the spinal cord, which is called as the coccyx. So therefore, all the organisms under chordates, they have a tail, and they have a closed circulatory system wherein the heart has arteries, veins, capillaries and all that pumps the blood to particular organs. So therefore, it is a closed circulatory system. Next, under phylum chordata, I told you there are various subphylums. So it is urochordates or tunicata, cephalochordata and vertebrata. So we'll study what are these. There are some difference between the three. What are the differences we shall look into. So subphylum urochordata and cephalochordata, they come under protochordates. They are called as protochordates. Okay, and this is an important MCQ. So subphylum urochordata. So urochordata, they are marine organisms. They live in oceans and seas, and the main thing is they also have a notochord because they come under chordates. So chordates are those organisms which have a notochord. So notochord which is present at the dorsal side of the organism. So these notochord, they are present only in the tail of the larva. Only in the larval stage they will be there, and later on, that too in the larval stage, they will be in the tail of the larva. Later on, they will just disappear. So that is one of the characteristics. So those organisms which have a notochord, and that too the notochord is present only in the tail of their larva, later on it disappears. Those organisms are placed under subphylum Urochordata, under phylum Chordata. Next, one more, there is cephalochordate. So before moving into that, let's learn some of the examples. So there is Ascidia, Salpa and Dololium. So this is Ascidia. So Salpa, this is actually a group of Salpa. This is one Salpa, this is one more. So they are actually in a group. So it's almost like a fish only, and it's entirely transparent to look. Salpa. And then there is Dololium. So these are the different urochordates. So urochordates are also called as tunicata. Next, talking about subphylum Cephalochordata. So subphylum Cephalochordata, they are also marine organisms. So urochordata and Cephalochordata both are marine in habitat, that is living in oceans and seas. Now here, talking about the notochord, there is a major difference in the notochord between the urochordate and the cephalochordate. I told you in urochordate, the notochord is present only in the tail of the larva. But in the case of cephalochordates, the notochord is present, but it extends from the head to tail. So this is the notochord. If you can see, they extend from the head region to the tail region, and it is persistent throughout the life of the organism. So that is about cephalochordata. Some of the examples of cephalochordata, branchiostoma. So branchiostoma, this is branchiostoma, where you can see the notochord, which is present right from the head region up till the tail region, and it is present throughout the life of the organism. And it is also called as, that is branchiostoma is also called as amphiosis or lanceolate. So this is one of the example for cephalochordata. Next, talking about vertebrata. So now what is the difference between urochordata, cephalochordata and vertebrata? So here vertebrata, the notochord is present only during the embryonic period. After that, the notochord will disappear and it will develop into or it will be replaced by a cartilaginous or bony vertebral column in the case of adults. So again, difference between urochordata, cephalochordata and vertebrata. Urochordata, the notochord is present, but it is present only in the tail of the organism when it is in the larval stage. Later on, it will disappear. In cephalochordata, notochord is present, but it is present from the head up till the tail region, and it is present throughout. That is, in adults also it is found. In the case of vertebrata, notochord is present, but notochord is present only for a short period. Once the organism develops and becomes an adult, the notochord gets replaced by a cartilaginous or bony vertebral column, which is nothing but the backbone. So that is the difference between these three subphylums under chordata. And therefore all the vertebrates are chordates, but all chordates are not vertebrates. Why? Because for certain period of time they'll have a notochord, which will later on get replaced into a cartilaginous or bony vertebral column. So these are some of the vertebrates, that is the shark, then elephant, the whale. So these are some of the examples of vertebrata. Next, moving on to studying about the structure of vertebrata. So vertebrates, they have a ventral muscular heart. So heart is present, and the heart can be 2-chambered, it can be 3-chambered, or it can be 4-chambered. Say for example, we have cyclostomata, osteichthyes, all those have 2-chambered heart. And moving on to the reptiles, amphibians and amphibians have 3-chambered heart. And then mammals, we have 4-chambered heart. Even aves, the birds, also have 4-chambered heart. So based on the organism, that is how much chambered heart they have, under vertebrata also again it is divided into various classes, which we'll study later on in the next sessions. And they have kidneys, which help in excreting waste out of the body and also which helps in osmoregulation. And they have paired appendages, that is for locomotion or for movement. So these ostic thighs and chondric thighs, they have fins because it is needed for them to swim in the water. And limbs are present in the reptiles and that is mammals. All these have, and amphibians, they have limbs. So either they can have fins or they can have limbs. So these are some of the examples. So you can see here appendages. So fishes and all that, they have fins for movement, and amphibians, frog, the reptiles, that is the chameleon, and the aves, that is the sparrow here, and the mammal, an elephant, all these have limbs for movement. So now we know about the characteristics. So general characteristics, and we came to know what is the difference between the urochordata and vertebrata. So now let's look into some of the MCQs. So dash is not a characteristic feature of chordates. Presence of notochord, dorsal hollow nerve cord. You have to be careful with the question here. The question is, dash is not a characteristic feature. So presence of notochord is present in the chordates. Only thing is, it vanishes in some after a certain period, but it is present in some throughout lifetime. Dorsal hollow nerve cord, they have a dorsal hollow nerve cord. Absence of gill slits, then paired pharyngeal gill slit. So the right answer here is absence of gill slits, because they have gill slits on either side of the pharynx. So therefore, absence of gill slit is not a characteristic feature of chordates. Next question, dash are referred to as protochordates. So I told you, under protochordates, urochordates or tunicata, which is also called as tunicata. Urochordate is also called as tunicata. So tunicata and cephalochordate, both are called as protochordates. Vertebrata are not called protochordates. So therefore, both A and B is the right option. So therefore, option D is the right answer here, because both urochordata and cephalochordata are referred to as protochordates, and sometimes instead of giving the option as urochordata, they can give it as tunicata. Don't get confused, because urochordata is also called as tunicata. Dash is a characteristic feature of urochordata. Now I have asked the question as, dash is a characteristic feature. In the previous question it was, dash is not a characteristic feature. So the options here, notochord is present in adults. Now again here, don't get confused. What is the characteristic feature of? I am talking about urochordata. So notochord is present in adults? No, it's the wrong answer. Why? Because notochord is present only in the larvae, that too in the tail, in the case of urochordata. So option A is not the right one. Notochord is present only in larval tail. So this is a characteristic. Notochord is present from head to tail. No, that's not a right answer. Why? Because in cephalochordates it is present from head to tail, and notochord is persistent throughout life. That is also in the case of cephalochordates. So therefore, the characteristic of urochordate is notochord is present only in larval tail. Next option, next question. In vertebrata, notochord is present in throughout life, only in adults, during embryonic period, both A and C. So throughout life, no, vertebrates do not have notochord throughout life. Why? Because once they become adult, the notochord gets replaced by a bony or cartilaginous vertebral column, right? So this option is not right. So next option, only in adults, no, because in vertebrates, adults do not have a notochord. So this is also not the right option. Next, during embryonic period. Yes, it is present only during embryonic period. Later on, they get replaced. So option C is the right answer. A and C, both A and C is not the right answer. So therefore, here option C is the right answer for this. Next, branchiostoma comes under subphylum. Branchiostoma, is it urochordata? No. Urochordata under that, no. Tunicata, tunicata is also called as urochordata only, no. It is cephalochordata. So branchiostoma, which is also called as, or they can ask the question as lanceolate, because it is also called as lanceolate. It comes under, or amphioxus. So it comes under cephalochordata. Next, animals that lacks jaw are placed under which division? So, which do not have jaws. So here again, it's placed under Pisces. Now, Pisces have jaws. Agnatha, Gnathostomata, Tetrapoda. It is Agnatha, because Agnatha are those animals which do not have jaws. So, therefore, for example, under phylum Vertebrata, we have Cyclostomata, a subphylum called as, or a class called as, we have a class called as Cyclostomata. So those organisms, that is the organisms that come under Cyclostomata, they are ectoparasites and they do not have jaws. So they are placed under the division Agnatha. Agnatha means jawless. Jawless organism. They are placed under Agnatha. So the right answer here is Agnatha. Next, the characteristic feature of Gnathostomata. So Gnathostomata are those organisms which have jaws. So therefore lacks jaws. No, lacks jaws is Agnatha. Body devoid of scales is again Agnatha only. That too it is Cyclostomata. Cyclostomata. Then base jaws. This is actually Gnathostomata. So all organisms that have jaws are placed under subphylum Gnathostomata. So this is the right answer. Lack paired fins is also again Agnatha only. Therefore, option C is the right answer here. Animals having paired fins are placed under Agnatha. No, because they do not have paired fins. So this is the wrong answer. Pisces, Tetrapoda, Amphibia. Yes, Pisces is the right answer because Pisces have paired fins. Tetrapoda, no, because Tetrapoda means tetra, 4, poda means legs. So they are the organisms which have legs. So it's not Tetrapoda, it's not Amphibia also, because amphibians also have limbs. So paired fins are present in Pisces. Pisces is the right option here. Dash is a characteristic feature of vertebrata. Here, dash is a characteristic feature of vertebrata. Presence of notochord only in larval tail? No, because that is a characteristic feature of urochordata. Presence of notochord throughout life? No, that is a characteristic feature of cephalochordata. Notochord development in adults? No, because notochord is present in vertebrates in the embryonic stage, not in the adult stage. Therefore, the right answer is presence of vertebral column, because those notochords which were present in vertebrata during the embryonic stage will get replaced into a bony vertebral column or cartilaginous vertebral column in adults. So, therefore, presence of vertebral column in adults is the right option for this, which is a characteristic of vertebrates. Next, the vertebrate heart has dash number of chambers. 2, 3, 4, all the above. All the above is the right option because 2 chambered are found in class Osteichthyes and class Chondrichthyes. 3 chambers are found in class Amphibia and class Reptilia. Again in Reptilia, one exception, crocodiles have 4 chambered, okay, and 4 chambered is found in aves and mammals. So therefore, all of the above is the right option, because I have not mentioned there the aves heart has dash number of chambers, or I didn't ask there the Chondrichthyes heart has dash number of chambers. I have asked in general, vertebrata. So vertebrata, in under vertebrata, Chondrichthyes, Osteichthyes, aves, mammals, all that come. So therefore, all the above is the right answer here, because some of them will have 2, 3, 4 chambers like that. So some of them can have 2, 3, 4 chambers. So therefore, all of the above is the right answer here. So this was about the session wherein we learnt about the general characteristics of phylum chordates. Under that, we got to know what urochordata is, cephalochordata is, and vertebrates. And based on the notochord, what is the major difference in these three, we got to know. And we learned some of the MCQs that can be framed under this particular topic. So I hope you understood this session well. We shall meet again in the coming session wherein we'll take up some of the topics under phylum Vertebrata, that is different classes, and we shall discuss about the MCQs under that. So, see you in the coming session. Thank you.